The spirit in the memorial house. In the quiet village of Umueleke, surrounded by ancient forests and hidden paths known only to the oldest Dibias, there stood a house that no one dared to enter the Unknowingly, built in memory of a great warrior, Ogbuniu. The villagers said the house was cursed, that anyone who stepped foot into its compound at night would return with empty eyes or not return at all. But when Chika, a 24-year-old orphan who returned from the city to claim his father's land, arrived in the village, he laughed at the warnings. Ghosts, spirits, that's old people's tale, he scoffed. Chika moved into the memorial house, thinking it was just abandoned land. But on the first night, the wind refused to rest. It howled like a woman in labor, and the trees whispered names no one should know. At exactly 13 a.m., Chika woke up to the sound of footsteps in his corridor. Tap, tap, dap. He opened the door, nothing. He went back to bed, heart pounding, but then heard a whisper right beside his ear, even though no one was there. Mwoke, I juru onyo, Obuji Hoziri? This man. Are you not afraid? Did they not warn you? He jumped up and turned on his flashlight, only to find his late father's portrait smiling, though he was sure the photo had no smile before. The next day, Chika went to the village square to ask questions. The elders told him a tale few dared to repeat. Ogbuni, said Elder Igel, his eyes sunken and voice gravelly, was not buried like other men. He made a deal with spirits in the forest of Oyorni. When he died, they demanded his spirit in return, but his sons trapped it in that house, sealing it beneath a sacred drum under the floor. Why? Chika asked, terrified but curious. To stop it from roaming, the elder said. But that drum must never be touched or played. That night, the drum began to beat from under the floor. Dum dum, dum dum. Chika couldn't sleep. He poured hot water over the wooden floor, thinking maybe it was rats or air. But then he saw muddy footprints inside his kitchen, but the doors were locked. When he tried to leave, the front door refused to open. The windows showed thick forests, but he knew the house was by the main road. Something had changed. One night, while burning candles and praying, he heard a soft singing voice. Na mwem, no. Go, my child, go. He turned and saw a woman in white with half of her face rotten, yet the other half was beautiful and young. She stared at him. You don't belong here, Chika, the house remembers. The house knows. Leave before it reclaims you. Then she vanished into the wall. By dawn, he had packed his bag, but when he stepped out, he was still inside. The outside had become the inside. He tried calling his cousin. The phone rang. A voice picked, but it wasn't his cousin. It was his own voice, but crying. Soon, vines began growing inside the house, not from pots or corners but from the ceiling. Snakes with human faces slithered in dreams, and Chika stopped knowing when he was awake. Every mirror showed a different version of himself, one with eyes missing, another soaked in blood, another laughing with sharp teeth. He found old writings beneath the bed, pages written in dried blood, repeating the same line in Igbo. Ji halutara, ugbue, ibi onyani ha. They have returned again. Now you are their offering. Chika found the old drum. Against his will, his hands began to beat it. Dum dum, dum dum, and the house shook. From the walls, spirits poured out, headless children, women with no tongues, men with broken necks. They danced in silence, surrounding him, and in the middle of them, Ogbuniu, wearing bones and feathers, stepped forward. You broke the seal, Chika, he growled, his voice like thunder and fire. Now you must replace me. Chika screamed, but no one could hear. They say the memorial house is empty, but every night, a young man's voice can be heard drumming from within. If you listen closely, you will hear the whispers of a soul trying to escape. Biko, Nairem aka, Atfoamanu Ibiozo. Please help me. I don't want to be here anymore. But it's too late. The house chooses, and once chosen, you cannot leave. The curse spreads. After Chika vanished, strange things began to happen in Umueleke. At midnight, the village's only well began to overflow, but not with water. It oozed black, thick liquid that smelled like burnt flesh. The villagers thought it was an oil spill, until a young boy dropped a stick into the well, and heard a child's laughter echo from within. Goats were found tied upside down to trees, gutted clean but no blood on the ground. Newborns in the village cried only at night, and when they did, their voices sounded like old men screaming. Elder Igel called for a village meeting, but only 13 of the 42 elders showed up, the others missing. Their doors wide open, their cooking fires still burning, and on each of their compound walls, smeared in white chalk, were the same words: Abara Juni A Naim Negru. Blood is part of what dances in this game. In desperation, the villagers travelled to the outskirts of the dreaded forest of Oyorni, to beg Dibiakwu, an ancient priest said to be older than the oldest tree. His hut was hidden behind 3 rivers, guarded by birds that spoke only in riddles. When the people arrived, Dibiakwu wept. "You have awakened the Jim-Muo, the head of wandering spirits," he said. "That house was never just a tomb, it was a prison for spirits that defied death. What must we do?" Elder Igel begged. The Dibia responded, "The drums have been played. The pact is broken. One life must be taken every 9 days to keep the spirits calm, or the ground will open and swallow your village." "But whose life?" they asked. Dibiakwu looked at the sky, eyes glowing white. "The house will choose." 9 days later, at the exact hour the drum last sounded, a pregnant woman was found inside the memorial house. No one saw her enter. Her stomach was cut open, yet the child was missing. In its place, a snail shell lay beside her torn womb, spinning slowly on its own. The villagers screamed, wept, and some began packing their things. But anyone who tried to leave disappeared into thin air once they reached the village boundaries. One man, Emeka, ran into the bush, only to be seen walking calmly back an hour later with his eyes sewn shut and his mouth whispering something no one understood. From that day on, the villagers could only wait for the next choosing. The elders returned to Dibiakwu. He revealed there was one ritual that could end it, but it had not been performed in over 300 years. It required the bones of the firstborn child from each family line, the blood of a Dibia who has never lied, the silence of the village for 3 nights, no sound, no crying, not even footsteps. If even one child cried, the ritual would fail. The villagers agreed, but silence was impossible. The night they began the ritual, a baby cried from a hut that no one lived in. When they went to the hut, there was no baby, just a doll, rocking itself and humming. And beside it, a message on the wall: I told you, it's too late. Part 11, Children of the Ogbanj. One of the village teachers, Mwakigo, began noticing that some of her students no longer cast shadows. They answered questions in strange languages. One boy, Obina, wrote on the blackboard in symbols that looked like crawling insects. When she asked him what it meant, he replied in a voice that wasn't his: "We are the children of the Ogbanj. We have returned to collect the debt owed." That night, Mwakigo hung herself with her own braids. But in the morning, her body was standing, eyes open, smiling, and humming the same lullaby from the memorial house. She stayed standing for 3 days before vanishing. Soon, the villagers heard trees moving at night, not swaying, but walking. The ancient aqua tree near the shrine was seen behind someone's compound the next morning. How did it move? A farmer, as a Chukwu, swore he saw his late grandmother inside the forest, standing among the trees, calling his name. When he ignored her and ran back, his legs became covered in green scales, and he now moves like a lizard, whispering to stones. Dibiakwu, sensing the end was near, called for a final ritual, Ikpochi Muo, the binding of spirits. But to do it, they needed Chika or what was left of him. They entered the memorial house one last time. Inside, the walls were bleeding. Faces pushed from behind the plaster. The air was heavy with chants and drumming that came from nowhere. They found Chika, but he was no longer human. His body floated, mouth open, drumming with no hands. His eyes were all white, and he spoke in many voices. Bind me, you built me. I am the memory of your sins. I am what you buried and forgot, as